We're back again. It's the Wednesday's Child podcast, and you're listening to Sarah and Debbie here to have a bit of a discussion about the world of eating disorders, recovery, and staying focused on ourselves and our well-being. So, hi there, Sarah.
Hello, how are you?
Monday. It's a
I
lovely
know.
Monday.
And we had the most glorious weekend, and now it's grey, misty, and drizzly here in Middlesbrough.
Yeah,
but
and you had an amazing weekend, didn't you? Because you were down in London and you were seeing the sights on a
double-decker bus. No, well, it wasn't open top. We've never
Oh.
ridden on a proper double-decker bus, London double-decker bus before. And as we were getting on the stop, I was saying to Amy, quick, the front one's free. So we flew up the stairs and sat right at the front. But that was lovely.
And then you went and watched Cinderella.
Yeah, we saw Cinderella. I had a bit of a week last week. I saw Cinderella on Saturday, and then I saw the Jersey Boys with my mum in Sunderland on Tuesday. So it's one of those things where you kind of, you go all or nothing. But no, it's a really great, really good weekend and a good week actually.
Well, I know I like to do segues into things, but I do think that's kind of really on point for what I want to talk about today. And part of this is because my post bag, if you like, my virtual post bag via my email has been as full as ever, as has our social media, about people just saying, oh, give me some, help here. I'm stuck. I'm doing that usual thing I do as kind of winter comes to summer, and I'm procrastinating about being well, and told myself that I wasn't going to stay stuck in, eating disorder scenario for another 12 months. And kind of people just wanting our advice, but also our kick up the backside. And I guess great way to start that is to say, when you look at your life now and you have a week like you've just had, where you've done the Jersey Boys, you've done Cinderella, you've done a day out with your daughter, you've had a lovely weekend in the sunshine, you've done your sightseeing tour to London, do you ever look back and wish that you could talk to yourself in the state that Sarah was when she was poorly? And do you know what you would say to help her realize that life could be so much richer and more fulfilling?
Without doubt. I think that the big thing is that obviously weekends and weeks, actually, well, a fortnight. So I was away with work last week. I'm about to go in London, hence we went to London for a couple of days as well. Like you said, I had a trip out with my mum to Sons and Empire. I'm away as of this afternoon to Nottingham for a full week. Now that's, because of my new job, and my new job means that I do travel more. So when I was teaching, that wasn't in the equation. But for me, it's this kind of sense of it being something less to worry about. So when you're poorly, everything is about what you're going to do for those 3 meals and those 3 snacks, to either have them or to avoid them, isn't it? Everything. So whether or not you're going to see a Lloyd Webber show, or you're going on your first London top deck bus, when you're sat on that top deck bus, the only thing you're thinking about is all the food stalls you can see. The only thing you're thinking about is the fact that you're going to have to eat in 12:30. And what if Amy wants to go to a noodle place and I don't want noodles today, I've got to have this. And you're constantly processing food and when your next food going to be, or how you're going to not have that food.
Or food or movement, I would say. I mean, for me, it was about movement. So I would have been sat on the bus thinking, we've been on here for 20 minutes now, we're in traffic and I'm supposed to have moved now. I haven't done another 1,000 steps in this last hour. Yeah. Why isn't this driver moving quick enough? And the whole world would have been at fault. Not my eating disorder. Everybody else would have been at fault. And I would have gone from being the happy person that had really looked forward to doing this and probably have told my family, I'm going to have a whole weekend without my eating disorder or some such nonsense. And in a moment of somebody changing that schedule in my crazy head, would have ruined everything.
And the best example of that was actually on Saturday. We went to Itsu for lunch. I love Itsu. There is no such thing up here in the northeast, so it was gorgeous.
Oh wow! But you didn't have Itsu up there.
No, we don't have it.
Oh, forget that then. I'm not coming to stay out there. You'll have to come down south.
But anyway, we were with my sister-in-law, and she had her new baby with her, and she was like battling with stuff. So I like grabbed the pram and grabbed the bag, and I was making my way to try and find somewhere to sit. And before I knew it, my mother-in-law and Amy had ordered and brought food to the table, and I was like, all right, cool. And we ate. But if you rewind like 18 months ago, well, I wouldn't have helped Sophie out. I'd have gone in and I'd have been right, I need to make sure I get that little tiny bit of sushi and I get that exact noodle pot and I get and I'd have left all them doing whatever they needed to do. So actually, the only thing I would have been doing at that time was thinking about me and thinking about my food, and not even contemplating the fact that my sister-in-law was struggling with a massive pushchair, and that my 13-year-old was there getting all the food she possibly could find because we were in Itsu. And the only way you get to that situation is by absolutely leaning in on those remaining behaviors, because we're not talking here, are we, about people that are in those early stages and maybe have to have structure and plan and a process. We're talking about those folks that you said that are stuck, that are still saying to themselves, like you said there, oh, I'm going to let myself have a weekend off this weekend. I mean, that just drives me, well, you know, that drives me insane. I feel so sad when I hear people say that phrase.
Yeah, I mean, we have had that before, haven't we, about people saying, I'm going on holiday and I'm not going to take my eating disorder for my holiday. I'm going to have a week off. What? Yeah. What about like having your life back to normal rather than I'm just going to have a week of this illness?
Well, exactly the thing, isn't it? When you tell yourself you're having a weekend off, a week off, you're meaning you're having a weekend away from your illness. So therefore, there's an intention that you are going to go back to it.
Yeah.
I think if you're really honest, if you really, and again, that thing we always say to people, don't we? Find the truth. What is the truth in this thought, feeling, and this action? If you're saying, right, I'm going to have a weekend off, then the truth is that come Sunday night, you're planning on going right back again.
And the truth is also that the prelude to planning to go away is your head has already decided I'm taking a week off. So I'm already compensating. So before I go away, I'm getting myself in a worse state and less able to cope with my week away.
Yeah.
Because I need to do more exercise or more restriction in order to justify this week off. I mean, it's almost like, you know, I say so often with people about that kind of your workload, say in your office life. If you are planning to go on holiday for a week, actually, shouldn't we all be able to park the email and go on holiday for a week? The idea is not clear your bloody in tray before you go and work, you know, until midnight every night to do all the work, to then find that when you go on holiday, you're sick as a dog because you worked too hard and you hated your holiday because you were really, really poorly. I mean, it's kind of as counterintuitive as that. The idea is, you know, yes, if you've made a line in the sand that you really, really want to enjoy your holiday, great. But actually, everything that you do during your holiday to give yourself a freer time than perhaps you've had previously should be nothing more than a momentum, a springboard to continue it once you come back, but never to pack it in your bags and bring it home with you. I mean, it's just.
And I know people will be saying, okay, so how do I do that? How do I get to the stage where I can walk into Itsu or Wagamama or Greg's, wherever you're going, and not even think twice about what people are going to produce and get for you for your dinner? So the only way you do is, for me, was practice that exact behavior that I wanted to be able to have. So I wanted to be able to be the girl again that could walk into Itsu and just have food, simple as.
Yeah.
So you practice that by walking into Itsu and feeling the anxiety and feeling the fear, but sitting your ass down and saying to someone, could you just get me food?
Yeah.
And just waiting to see, because your loved ones aren't going to bring you poison. You know, they're going to bring you food, and they know what you like as well. If you're trusting people around you, they're not going to bring you things that they know you don't like, that they know your likes, they know. Just you just have to go in, sit down and deal with the fact that someone else is going to bring you dinner, and then you eat it.
And it's only now, like as a kind of in a point of recovery, that you ask friends and family to reflect on the things that were most, I was going to say hurtful, but just most distressing for them to witness. And it was those silly little things. I mean, yes, you know, they hated watching you end up emaciated, tired, worn out, poorly. They hated all that sort of physical side of things. But it was the day-to-day stuff. It was the stuff of going out with my mum to a cafe and knowing full well that she knew that I wouldn't accept her just going to the cafe and going to the counter and ordering something for me. I had to interfere. Or she'd come back to the table and I'd say, I'll just go and ask them this, or I'll just go and get a glass of water. And actually, ultimately, what I was doing is saying, oh, can you make sure that's skim milk in this? And can I have more hot water on the side so I can dilute it down, please? Or actually, I think I've changed my mind. You know, she's just ordered me a hot chocolate. Can I get a Diet Coke, please? And it was my pattern of behavior that just must have been so infuriating. So when in recovery, you can just say to someone, a sandwich, I guess. Just order me whatever you like. I'm nipping to the loo, you know, and
Yeah.
almost take it, deliberately excusing myself from the environment just to say, you've got control. You rule it for me.
Or just that simple, "Oh, I'll have whatever you're having." You
Yeah.
know, that simple statements really, because your friend is going to, you know, going to be having nice food. Your parents can have nice food. I'll just have whatever you're having. And thinking about your mum there in that cafe, I remember when I first started to try and shift this behavior. I remember we went to a garden centre, and I sat down, and Mum was like, "Oh, are we going to the counter?" And I said, "Oh no, Mum, you just get me whatever you're having, just get me whatever you think." And she started asking me a million questions because she'd got so used to my questions. And I remember sitting there thinking, "Oh my God, what have I done to this? What have I done to this situation, this lovely day out? What's my illness done to this?" Because she was like, "Well, will you want white bread or brown bread? Will you want stuff with mayonnaise? Will you want it small? Do you want a hot drink with it? You need a hot drink and a glass of water, won't you? And are you in a draft? You're in a draft. We need to maybe move it out of the way." And she started to counteract the fact that I was going, "I'm just going to sit here and just order me whatever," because she'd been so used to, for however many years, me being and asking those questions and changing my mind 80,000 times.
Oh, and it's awful, isn't it? Because you become so aware of how other people have their behaviors manipulated by yours, because
Yeah.
you know they've just got so used to that's how you live your life and how you impact on them.
My mum used to have two biscuit barrels. So she had a biscuit barrel with biscuits in, like what I class as proper biscuits, you know, hobnobs, chocolate digestives, wagon wheels. And then she had my biscuit tin that had in it like bullshit, gluten-free, crappy things. And I remember when, again, it's funny, isn't it, what you remember? When I was decided that I was going to embrace, I went through my period of just saying yes. That was a really important period for me, where whatever people asked me, I just said yes. So I went back in and she said, "Do you want a biscuit?" And I said, "Yes, please." And she came out with the bullshit biscuit barrel. And I had to say no to the bullshit biscuit barrel and say, "Oh, can I have something out of the blue one?" And knowing fine well what was in there. But again, it's that shift. Now she only has one biscuit barrel now, because when I walk in and she asks me a biscuit, it's just a biscuit. But it's all of these little things that can be really hidden if you're not careful. And you can live in a world where you're always going to be the person that chooses out of the second biscuit barrel. But by doing that, you're always a person that's missing out on something.
And I think that would be a really good tip for recovery, just saying don't allow other people to become complicit in allowing your eating disorder to keep breathing, because actually it's not their fault that that's still happening. They're so used to your behaviors and your way of life, and to trying to, you know, that all they want to do is limit the distress for you. So actually it's kind of on us as we go through our recovery journey to keep thinking, okay, I have to keep doing this and keep challenging it, but I also have to keep reminding other people what's changed, and asking for a second portion, or asking for the blue biscuit barrel, or yeah, helping them change their behaviors on behalf of our recovery. And I think if we're not careful, we just fall back into saying, oh well, she's not going to ask me if I want a really nice biscuit, so I'll just stick with the crappy ones.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're not being asked things, if you decide you want to challenge snacks, for instance, and you're not being asked to have snacks wherever you go, it's because they're not used to you wanting them. So you have to then be brave enough to say, even though anorexia will be screaming at you and your eating disorder will be screaming at you to keep your mouth shut, you have to be brave enough to say, "Have you got any toasted tea cakes, ma'am? You know, oh, have you got a hot cross bun? I don't suppose you've got any ice cream." And you've got to be the person that does the asking. Because again, they'll just be used to you saying no, or just not asking anything at all. So the whole thing, we always say the whole thing's an absolute great big crazy mess of stuff. But I think that just those couple of real key toolkit things, find the truth, just say yes, say things out loud and get people to help you out, and make sure, just have a check in how your loved ones are around you. And like you says, that them being complicit isn't their fault, but it's also not healthy for recovery.
Yeah, I can remember going and staying with a friend once, and she was so used that I wouldn't be content unless I'd got up and done a run every single day. And I remember her saying, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to leave the front door key so you can go out in the morning and go for your run, because I know you'll be happier if you've done your run." And I was in recovery, and I remember that thing of thinking, shit, like, should I just stick with that? Because she's given me permission, because
Yeah.
that's what it feels like. It feels like someone saying, so you carry on with your weird behaviors, you carry on doing that. And it's in that moment that you have to say, no, 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 they're doing that because they think you're still in the state of poorliness and they're trying to just make you feel a little bit better. But actually, real recovery is saying, do you know what, that's really kind of you to think about me. But actually, my friendship with you means more. And I would rather wake up and sit in our pajamas and watch some crappy television than be buggering off on a run when I've come to stay with you for a weekend or something, you know. And actually, we have to call ourselves out.
My mates came around the other weekend, Fiona and Jane, God bless them, and they turned up in their pajamas. They come around mine for tea and lots of wine. It happened. And I was like, "Why are you in your pajamas?" And Fiona says, "It was like the old days when we were trying to get you to stay put."
Oh, amazing.
I was like, "Oh my God!" So I came flying upstairs, shoved my pajamas on. But again, that was a process when I locked myself away and I wouldn't come out, and then I'd make any excuse not to be part of anything. But then the flip side, when I knew I needed to start socializing again and wanted to start eating with friends and things again, I had to say to them, look, eating out for me is just not working at the minute, but I still want these times. So a couple of us decided, well, we would do those times and we'd get pizza and we'd get takeaway and we'd have our jammies on and we'd get comfy and we'd just relearn how to be with each other. And then, Sarah, when the time's right, you tell us when you're ready to go for a meal. So we practiced that bit first and then we started to go out for meals.
And did that happen quicker than you had anticipated?
Loads quicker because I suddenly realized that actually just being with them was what I was missing.
Yeah.
And that the food was a secondary thing, whereas I'd put the food on the pedestal for such a long time that as soon as I started to realize that actually it's not about the food. You could be eating mashed potato and gravy. Doesn't need, that, and that's it. If you've got your besties around you and you're chilling out and you're laughing, the food should be second. It should just be something that you shouldn't really notice it, should you? The whole point is that you're just eating crisps and you're chatting away. You shouldn't be thinking about every single crisp that's going in and what's it made of and what's its mackerel, this, that, and the others. So yeah, no, it did happen much quicker because my brain suddenly went, right, this is what you've been missing. Come on, crack on.
Well, it's different for all of us, isn't it? Because one of the questions I get asked a lot, and I don't know whether you get this a lot from the people that you befriend, is how long will it take until I don't think about it anymore? How long will it take until I just spontaneously, I don't know, walk into a fast food restaurant or slather my sandwich with mayonnaise and just realize I'm not thinking about it, or have, 6 weeks off exercise and realize I've not even considered it. Do you think there is a setback? I mean, from everybody you've ever talked about that's been through recovery, do you think there is a transition point? I sort of think that for some people it comes like a bolt out of the blue, and then others it's just all of a sudden you're aware that these things aren't taking so much of your mental energy that they once were.
And I think it's also, is it maybe also where you realize that you're making a proper choice rather than a poorly choice? So going back to Itzu was next door to McDonald's. We chose not to go to McDonald's, but we still chose to eat. So that was a positive choice, where there were periods in recovery where you chose to go to places like McDonald's because you were trying to work on burger and fries. And speaking of burgers, I had the best burger in a burger restaurant while I was in London, but that's a total
Did
aside.
you?
Of class. Patty and something, the restaurant chain's called. Really nice. Anyway, that's a total aside.
But also, I suppose it's if that thing of you've not had to walk up and down 3 different high streets looking in the window to see what's on their menu before then saying to your friend, no, I don't like any of those.
Or sat on the top deck of the double-decker bus pretending that you're doing your sightseeing but you're scrolling through menus.
Oh my Lord.
And again, I think that's a big sign. I think it's when you start recognizing or acknowledging that those behaviors have got less and less and less, isn't it? Or those habits have become less, of things like having to look at the menu. Again, looking at the menu beforehand at a certain stage of my recovery was the best thing I ever did, because it meant that I knew what I was having. I was more relaxed. I could sit down, I could engage in conversation, and I wasn't just preoccupied with the menu and getting into a spin. So that was a really important tool. But then with any tool that's still disordered, you have to then unlearn that as well. So it's a constant process of unlearning. So yeah, it is that moment of realization when you walk in and you go, oh, hang on, I haven't even looked at the menu here. All right, okay. Oh, I best look at it now. So yeah, for me, I can't remember it. Oh, I'm recovered, but I just remember these like little hints of things that were trickling by and chipping away.
And all these months and years on, are there things for you that you find are the ones that have to bring you back down to earth with a bump? I mean, perhaps this weekend was a really good case in point. Are there any things where you think, oh, do you know what, I still need to work on that?
I still need to work on when I'm surrounded by people who are on a diet.
Oh, okay, yeah. With you on that? Oh.
Yeah. I still need to work on the feeling inadequate because I'm not the one who can run anymore or can swim anymore.
That's funny. I've never talked to you about that, but actually I can really relate to that. And I think one of the things I've had to do, and it's not because I don't want these people in my circle, but you naturally surround yourself with people that do attend the running clubs and all that stuff because that's what you did at a certain point in your identity. And I've had to sort of stop kind of following so many people on the likes of Facebook and whatever who are friends, but what I don't really want to be reminded of every Sunday morning is that they've done 20-mile runs when I just don't do that anymore.
Yeah. And that is a biggie when you are surrounded by folks that are incredibly fit and healthy, and you knew that you used to be able to literally run rings around them. I used to do a cracking 10k. My time for 10 and 5k was awesome. Now I would struggle to, well, I could get round a 5k, but it would be very slow. And it would be, I'd be stopping and starting like a yo-yo. The third thing I think that I was still, that this weekend made me think about, got to really keep in mind, is that mid-morning period. So like I will have breakfast and then I'll get busy being busy, don't you? And I will tend to like wait until it's lunchtime at 12:30. Even if I was hungry at 11, there's still something in my head about the timings of lunch that makes me think, well, it's not lunchtime yet, even if your stomach's like going crazy at you. Whereas the rest of the day, I could eat tea and supper dead late. I could eat it dead early. There's something about this breakfast to lunch thing. But that's where we always say, don't we, that it is about being on the lookout, because things can. I do 100% believe in full recovery. I really, really do. But I think all of us, it's just human nature that memories and habits, when they have been well grained, they will tend to sometimes maybe come back, and it's just questioning.
It's a muscle though, isn't it? You know, we talk about
Yeah.
muscle memory and everything else. So if you don't start to encourage that muscle to work in a different way, if we're not careful, it will just keep resorting to the thing it knows best.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't think there's anything wrong with constantly checking in with yourself. You're checking for other things, wouldn't you? If you were giving up anything else, you would be checking in on how it was going. If you had a bad cold, you'd be checking in on how that was going. And I think also it's about that, giving yourself permission that you don't need to be in your head all the time. I had this conversation with my mother-in-law at the weekend, actually, that like, when you're poorly, you're in your head all the time, and you're constantly that constant bullying and battering and that narrative. But actually, you don't need to be there. You can just learn how to kind of not be in your head. And these moments of time, they'll pass. So if you're struggling with bread, if you're struggling with running or whatever at the moment, if you really work at it, that struggle will pass. It will. It 100% will pass.
Yeah, but one guaranteed way that it won't pass and that you'll stay stuck in the mind fog is just to keep repeating what you've always done. And it's very trite, isn't it? If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And sadly, that is the reality. So you have to, what do we say? The only way out is through. And keep asking that question, is that true? Every time you're questioning yourself and your desire and motivation for recovery, and why you're doing certain things, why you're allowing certain behaviors to exist.
And just give yourself a break. Because the minute you give yourself a break, you'll give everybody else a break, and then ultimately life just isn't full of hassle. People often describe what's it feel like, and it's really hard for me to give it a proper word, because I don't think there is a word in the English language for something that is so great that it makes you feel great but still makes you feel normal, if that makes sense. And it's just that life doesn't have the element of hassle. There is so many other hassles that we can't avoid. You will always have to pay your mortgage, you'll always have your car repayments, you'll always have a dog with a bad leg or whatever. There's so many hassles you can't avoid, but you can rewire your behaviors enough so that you can avoid the hassle of an eating disorder.
I just think for me it just is about having that normalized freedom. Just, you know, life is full of things that restrict us to, you know, time. We've all got to work, we've got certain duties and obligations in the world, but actually the thing that the eating disorder robbed me of most was freedom to be who I really was without an eating disorder, freedom to have friendships, freedom to socialize, freedom to be at peace with myself, freedom to be in the body I was meant to be in, freedom not, as you say, to be in my head 24/7. So gaining back spontaneity and freedom is the thing for me.
And it's really important, I think, because I'm not someone who's made of money, you know, like most folks aren't who probably listen to this. And you can get sucked into like the Instagram world where recovery means moving to out to Mongolia and getting the world's best job and blah blah blah. You know, it is literally about being able to run up the stairs and sitting at the front of a bus. You know, it is literally about being able to push your nephew through a crowded cafe in order to help out your sister-in-law. It is about being able to sit on a bench in your back garden and stroke your dog rather than feeling like you should be running around. If you focus on the small things that actually really, really, really matter, then ultimately, if you have the means, you can go to Kuala Lumpur or whatever. But if you focus on the small things, then those little things in life just make life daily. Every single day is better. It's not about saving up for the big events. It's about thinking about what today can be better without an eating disorder.
And I would say to anybody that wants to do that as a kind of physical visual representation exercise is, you know, we talk about mood boards and scrapbooking and stuff. Actually, you know, all that time that you're spending in your head, just take a couple of hours or do it as a, I have actually done things like this kind of journaling and stuff like that during my recovery, but almost if you choose it as your weekend exercise and you keep revisiting it, is what would that day in the life of a recovered me look like? So is that a kind of Sarah typical example of being able to go to theatre, going out for a dirty burger somewhere and jumping on the top of a bus and being more friendly with your sister-in-law? You know, whatever those things are, represent that in some kind of mood board of your future self in recovery. Because if that visual helps you be focused and remind yourself why you're doing this, it will just make it that little bit easier when, and we all know it happens, you look in your mirror one day and you just feel different, or you go to put some clothes on when you've been doing really, really well for the last couple of weeks, but suddenly you put those jeans back on and they do feel different because they're meant to feel different because they shouldn't have been fitting you in the first place. So there are always those little things that just challenge you a bit. So if that visual representation is the thing that helps you say, hold on, I'm doing this because I want this life more than I want to keep in these size 0 clothes that actually look frankly stupid, then, you know, maybe that's just one more thing that keeps us focused.
I had a board when I was in Birch, when I was on the ward. I had a board of all the little things, and then right in the heart of that board was the one thing that was going to be, this is what recovery is. And my psychologist and I worked on it for quite a long time, and it was going to be going to Paris with Amy. So I was going to be free enough to be able to take her to go and see the Mona Lisa, because that's what she's always wanted to do, and we go in 2 months.
Oh wow.
So the peripheral stuff of the body, sitting on the bench, they're riding on the bus, blah blah blah, you know, that's all. But that big event in the middle that since 2018 has been my, like, you are doing this for you, but there's an actual tangible thing here that's going to be a massive sign to you. And on the 30th of May, all being well with COVID, we'll be going. So we'll have to do a little live outside.
We should absolutely. We should do a check-in live of how does it feel to achieve that kind of what is almost like a recovery landmark for you and for Amy. That's amazing.
Do it outside the Eiffel Tower. Just do a quickie. I'll just show you, because the eating disorder is not invited on that holiday, so it'll be a quickie.
Amazing. God, we'll look forward to that. Well, I really hope this latest episode has been of use to those of you that are in a little bit of a struggle at the minute, or perhaps you've been doing really well, but you're occasionally flip-flopping and struggling to stay motivated and keep on the right side of recovery. Just take away some of those tips. Have a think about what we've said about, you know, visual representations, about reflections on not allowing other people to be complicit in your or inability to get fully recovered. So helping those around you to help you, and staying focused on what is required to help you achieve that spontaneous and freedom that you so deserve, that you really so deserve. And just take it from us when we say that a life beyond an eating disorder is absolutely worth the fight. And never ever do either of us underestimate how difficult it is, because we don't sit here as scholars in the world of eating disorders that have never gone through it. We sit here as people that have done the blood, sweat and tears. We've smashed stuff, cried, snotted, just I have done the most crazy stuff in my head and acted out in ways that I'm in some ways deeply ashamed of, but actually it's just the reality is we know what it's like. And so for any one of you that is here on this Monday morning, just the other side of a spat with your partner or your flatmate or your parent because of how difficult you're finding it to stick to recovery, then let us just say we hear you, and that's exactly why we exist, and we really, really are rooting for you in your recovery. Well, have a lovely week, and I will let you go, Sarah, and get ready for your busy week, and we will catch up for another episode really, really soon.
Definitely. Take care, everybody.
See you soon.